2 against 4, the odds weren't looking good. But Zhang Yi remained unconcerned. The 3 great ghost kings posed no threat to him, his defenses were flawless. Only those fragile beings would be riddled with vulnerabilities, offering lower-tier beings opportunities for sneak attacks. It seems you've evolved again during your battle with the boy. Truly worthy of a talent cultivated in the land of the rising sun. But in this state, killing you would be meaningless. Before you die, I'll tell you my name. They call me, Divine Nest Sun God. The moment the name of the Divine Nest Sun God was spoken, Zhang Yi's intelligence system immediately alerted him. According to the Kojiki ancient chronicles, at the dawn of the Neon World, 3 primordial deities existed, known as the 3 pillar gods. Their status in antiquity surpassed even Amaterasu, ruler of the divine court of the high heavenly planes, and her parents, the primordial deities Izanagi and Izanami. These 3 pillar gods were Ain no Minakanushi, Divine Birth Sun God, and Divine Nest Sun God. Within the myths of the Neon, they were the gods of all gods. He swung his scepter, aiming it toward Zhang Yi's location. Begin. The moment the Divine Nest Sun God spoke, the 3 great ghost kings behind him instantly scattered, closing in on Zhang Yi and Flower. Slit Ghost, hands tucked into his sleeves, sat cross-legged atop the colossal Inagami's head, watching Zhang Yi with a mocking, grotesque grin. The great Tengu struck first. His crimson face twisted with fury as a pair of enormous white wings flapped behind him. Then, his right index finger shot skyward. Divine might descends. The words barely left his mouth when a violent storm erupted overhead. A massive vortex formed at the center of the dark clouds, spinning with terrifying speed. The eye of the tornado appeared, dark clouds swirling downward, interwoven with relentless silver lightning bolts. In an instant, a colossal hurricane, as vast as a mountain, formed between heaven and earth. This strike alone could obliterate a small city. And now, it was hurtling straight toward Zhang Yi and Flower. A storm? Useless against me. A cold smile curled at the corner of Zhang Yi's mouth. He didn't move. Instead, Flower opened its massive jaws, unleashing a deafening roar. Powerful energy coalesced within its maw, transforming crimson supernatural energy into a colossal sphere. Aiming it at the mountain-like hurricane hurtling toward them, it unleashed a massive high-energy particle beam cannon with a thunderous boom. The crimson energy pierced the space before them, striking the very heart of the storm. Hee. At that moment, an aged chuckle echoed through the air. Slit Ghost fixed his gaze on Zhang Yi and Flower, his ability activating. The roly-poly has fallen. He clapped his hands, exclaiming gleefully. In an instant, the space around Zhang Yi and Flower seemed to freeze solid, trapping their bodies in immobility. Fortunately, this wasn't their first encounter with such an ability, so they already had countermeasures prepared. As long as everything under heaven remained deployed, even if their bodies couldn't move, it could form a perfect defense. Inugami opened its mouth, unleashing a breath attack similar to Flower's. The terrifying energy completely vanished into the dimensional space, disappearing into thin air without even a ripple. Inugami's ability index hovered around 13,000 points. An attack of this caliber was now barely enough to tickle Zhang Yi. Seeing this, the Slit Ghost frowned. Instantly leaping high, he drew the famed sword Anakiri from his waist and slashed at Zhang Yi's dimensional gate. A slash from this sword wouldn't alter an object's inherent nature, but it would sever everything apart. If a person were slashed, they'd be split in two, yet still alive. Aside from needing tape to walk, they'd be indistinguishable from anyone else. But if Zhang Yi's space were slashed, it too would be cleaved apart, losing its ability to block external attacks. Everything about to unfold before him, Zhang Yi saw it all. His ability to trace the paths of all things allowed him to evade any impending danger and devise the most effective countermeasures based on his enemy's tactics. Divine Realm Netherworld Cleansing. Before the Slit Ghost could reach Zhang Yi, a colossal force erupted from the void, crushing him into a compact mass. Ah! The King of the 100, Demon Knight Parade, the Lord of Spirits and Demons, now let out a piercing, agonized scream. After the screams, he rapidly retreated through the air. Crouching atop the Inugami's head, he fixed Zhang Yi with a gaze brimming with venomous hatred. It seems that possessing a physical form, even if it grants greater power, comes at the cost of losing that ability to regenerate infinitely. Or rather. Zhang Yi glanced at the divine nest sun god and remarked calmly, summoning 100 ghosts is also one of your abilities. If the opponent was an ability user, Zhang Yi would feel considerably more at ease. At the very least, it meant a significant portion of the enemy's strength didn't lie in direct combat. Then let the slaughter begin. Flower growled softly. High above, the divine nest sun god frowned, seemingly surprised by Zhang Yi's tenacity. He reached out, plucking a black magatama from his staff and hurling it toward Zhang Yi. Another black sun descended, this time engulfing the entire space surrounding Mount Fudo. Anticipating Zhang Yi's evasion, he employed a full-area assault, leveraging Deng Shintong and others below to force Zhang Yi into a direct confrontation. Unexpectedly, Zhang Yi's dimensional gate collided with the black magatama. Like thunder igniting earthfire, black sparks erupted, yet the immense energy was ultimately absorbed entirely. Yet the next moment, the dimensional gate began to tremble unsteadily, as if on the verge of collapse. A smug smile curled at the corner of the divine nest sun god's mouth. I knew it. You can't keep absorbing attacks indefinitely. Zhang Yi replied, too bad you don't know I can also reflect attacks. Any force the dimensional gate could absorb without damage could be redirected through vector alteration. Against weaker opponents, Zhang Yi usually ended them instantly, never needing this technique. Against overwhelmingly powerful foes, he never found an opening to unleash it. But when facing a pair of comparable strength, the true terror of this move manifested. Full counterattack. The black magatama, imbued with terrifying energy, was as dreadful on its approach as it was devastating on its return. The pupils of the divine nest sun god contracted sharply. What? He hadn't anticipated Zhang Yi could reflect his attack, yet he himself possessed no such absolute defense. In desperation, he hastily swung his scepter downward, hurling several magatama that transformed into colossal flying stars to collide with the incoming force. A storm raged, leaving Edo in even greater ruin. The impact of the force sent the divine nest sun god flying backward thousands of meters. Zhang Yi, however, absorbed all the shockwaves through the dimensional gate. Just as I thought. Zhang Yi looked down at the earth beneath his feet. Maintaining the 100, Demon Knight Parade has drained you of immense energy. So, at this moment, you truly pose little threat to me. Within Edo Castle, the 100, Demon Knight Parade. The revived ghosts displayed even greater power, posing a grave danger even to Liang Yu and the others. Zhang Yi paid them no mind, however. Confronting 4 epsilons simultaneously demanded his full focus. Whether his comrades below survived the battle depended entirely on their own strength. Zhang Yi had already done enough for them. To live in this world, one must first learn to rely on oneself. I seem to have underestimated you. Time and space, 2 of the rarest abilities, converge within a single being like you. Fascinating. I can now understand why the Dragon Kingdom chose you as their cultivation subject. The divine nest sun god stared at Zhang Yi, his voice deep and solemn. 3 ghost kings materialized behind him. The 4 who had previously maintained a stance of superiority now launched their attacks against Zhang Yi one after another. But now, they clearly regarded Zhang Yi as their true enemy, preparing to unleash their full assault without reservation. Zhang Yi's brow furrowed. The Dragon Kingdom? What exactly are you referring to? This was the first time Zhang Yi had ever heard that term. Dragons were profoundly sacred mythical creatures in Huashu Kingdom. Their presence permeated the kingdom's ancient legends. Yet to this day, no concrete evidence of their existence had ever surfaced. The only purported physical proof was the golden dragon specimen Deng Shintong sought to obtain. But Zhang Yi couldn't confirm what it truly was. Perhaps it was the remains of some lizard, wrapped in gold foil to achieve its current appearance. The cold gaze of the divine nest sun god fixed upon Zhang Yi. You don't even know of the Dragon Kingdom? Then where does your power come from? My power, of course, comes from myself, Zhang Yi declared. A look of astonishment tinged with anger suddenly flashed across the face of the divine Nest Sun God. Impossible. At the dawn of the great apocalypse, it's impossible for a being of your level to have been born naturally. He extended a finger, and Zhang Yi noticed his hand wasn't human, slender, bony fingers covered in gray fur, resembling some creature's claw. Without the intervention of angels, I refuse to believe it. More words poured from his mouth, terms Zhang Yi couldn't comprehend at all. Had they not been enemies, Zhang Yi would have genuinely wanted to engage in a proper conversation with him. What the hell is the Dragon Kingdom? And what is an angel? I've never heard of any of this. Besides, mutants with power like mine aren't common in this world, but they do exist, Zhang Yi explained. But the divine Nest Sun God shook his head. No, you don't understand. I'm not talking about such superficial things. Rumble. Thunder rumbled high above, as if the heavens themselves were enraged. Divine Nest Sun God looked up at the sky, then turned his gaze back to Zhang Yi. There's no time for idle chatter. Whoever you are, wherever you come from, today, right here, I will kill you. As his words fell, he raised both arms high, the scepter in his hands clanging loudly. Behind him, a thunderbolt struck down, tearing through the sky, carrying an awe-inspiring oppressive force. An even more powerful, terrifying force emerged from the body of the divine Nest Sun God. Zhang Yi's eyebrows furrowed, a faint smile playing at the corners of his mouth. Thunder rumbles faintly, dark clouds gather. May the storm come, and may it keep you here. He looked up at the four enemies before him and chuckled. But I won't be staying. The divine Nest Sun God joined forces with the three great ghost kings, launching a frenzied assault against Zhang Yi and Flower. Just as Zhang Yi had discerned, his power was being able to summon. Using his own telekinesis, he summoned the legendary 100 ghosts, making him a formidable demon army unto himself. But in this one-on-one battle, he faced the monstrous Zhang Yi. The everything under heaven ability dictated that any attack below the penetration threshold would be countered. Thus, even the 4 Epsilon's assault held little significance as long as the 3 great ghost kings posed no genuine threat to Zhang Yi. Facing the Magatama attack of the divine Nest Sun God, Zhang Yi had already adapted to its intensity. Even if the opponent possessed an ability index of 25,000 points or higher, the direct lethality of their attack was insufficient to shatter Zhang Yi's everything under heaven, which excelled in defense at 22,000 points. Therefore, Zhang Yi could not only block the opponent's attack but even counterattack. The Great Tengu summoned an even more formidable thundercloud storm, while the Inugami's energy cannon charged. Coordinating with the divine Nest Sun God, the trio launched an overwhelming assault from different directions. Boom! 3 powerful energy streams converged, causing the entire Edo city to sway violently. Buildings were extensively destroyed by the storm. Without its guardians, this vast metropolis was now nothing more than a forest of steel and concrete. Thunder and wind surged through the sky as dark energy swept over everything. But when the dust settled, Zhang Yi and Flower remained suspended steadily mid-air. The gate of 3,000 realms surrounding them stood as solid as a mountain, withstanding their combined assault. I'm nowhere near my threshold yet. After blocking the enemy's new wave of attacks, Zhang Yi chose to strike first. A finger extended from his right hand, revealing a massive void vortex behind him. Terrifying power of the void gathered at his fingertips, coalescing into a sphere of utter darkness. Condensing the power of the void. Zhang Yi's formidable offensive capabilities fell into 2 categories. Attacks utilizing void energy, and spatial manipulation for crushing strikes. In the past, he lacked truly potent long-range offensive methods, a weakness he had persistently sought to address. This pursuit ultimately led him to devise his latest technique, the star-piercing cannon. By compressing void energy to its absolute limit, he could instantly pierce targets at extreme ranges. This minimized energy dissipation mid-flight, avoiding the waste inherent in broad-area strikes. Simple yet supremely effective. Star-piercing cannon. With energy surging at his fingertips to the brink of explosion, Zhang Yi abruptly unleashed it toward the divine nest sun god in the sky. The void energy raced along its predetermined space trajectory, eagerly piercing toward the neon-clad legend clad in black robes. Its speed surpassed the naked eye's ability to track. Divine Nest Sun God's reaction was equally swift. As the threat closed in, he instantly raised his scepter before him. A massive barrier materialized before him. Boom! The star-piercing cannon slammed into the barrier, unleashing a torrent of void energy that surged and spread. The fragile barrier struggled desperately to hold, swaying precariously and unstable. With the barrier as the dividing line, the entire space above Edo City split into two worlds. It seemed as though the world behind the divine nest sun god could be swallowed by the void's power at any moment. Meanwhile, the three great ghost kings nearby were unable to withstand the aftershock of the star-piercing cannon. They were sent flying like trash bags. The strongest among these three, the Slit Ghost, possessed a power level of merely around 16,000 points. Their abilities primarily focused on single-target attacks, specializing in bizarre ambushes rather than mastering the offense and defense of supernatural powers. The power gap between them and Zhang Yi reached a staggering 6,000 to 9,000 points. Had the divine nest sun god not absorbed Zhang Yi's focus from the front, he could have instantly obliterated them. It wasn't that they were weak, but their ability trait simply posed little threat to Zhang Yi's ability. Conversely, a defensive behemoth like the Black Tortoise would have given Zhang Yi a headache. For others, the ability index merely signified the intensity of one's abilities, not absolute combat strength. But for Zhang Yi, it only served to diminish his true combat prowess. With virtually no weaknesses, he left no openings for opponents to exploit. Divine Nest Sun God had expended considerable energy blocking Zhang Yi's attack. After all, most of his power was tied up sustaining the 100 Demon Night Parade. He furrowed his brow deeply, his eyes filled with disbelief. It seemed unimaginable that he, an angel, could be driven to such desperation by a mere sixth generation. He was an angel. An existence like Zhang Yi should have been nothing more than a lowly insect before him. After the apocalypse, confined to the Neon region, he could never have imagined that on the land where the Dragon Kingdom dwelled, humanity had grown so powerful. Yet at this moment, Zhang Yi was also somewhat astonished. His strike, channeling his utmost power, had failed to pierce the opponent's defenses. Looks like this is going to be a protracted battle. Zhang Yi frowned. Yang Xinxin's voice echoed from the shadow space. Brother, we can't win this battle quickly. But the longer we hold out, the more the scales of victory will tip in our favor. Zhang Yi asked curiously, Oh? Xinxin, have you noticed something? Yang Xinxin explained, the revival of the 100 Demon Night Parade consumes the energy of the divine nest sun god. Therefore, he must simultaneously counter your attacks and flowers, while also sustaining the massive 100 Ghosts formation. As long as Teacher Liang and the others eliminate the demons below, the divine nest sun god's power will also be weakened. Zhang Yi found Yang Xinxin's reasoning compelling. I'm not afraid of a war of attrition against this opponent. Though Zhang Yi faced 4 adversaries alone and unable to secure a quick victory within a short time, his formidable offensive and defensive capabilities forced the divine nest sun god into a grueling stalemate. Terrifying energy swirled in the sky, neither side able to secure a swift victory in time. On the ground, however, the battle grew even more horrific. All manner of demons, now manifesting their true forms, unleashed a fierce assault upon Liang Yu and the others with power far surpassing their previous spectral states. Liang Yu frowned coldly, then drew the dragon roar sword. Whatever you are, I'll slash every last one of you today. With that, she charged forward without hesitation, her sword flashing like lightning as it swept downward, infused with blue spiritual energy. Ghostly shadows swirled in the distance as more and more specters gathered, completely encircling the entire Mount Fudo. Yet this was merely the beginning. High above, Zhang Yi and Flower faced 4 epsilons, holding their own without faltering. With absolute defense, the oppressive force from increased numbers didn't grow exponentially. Instead, attacks from lower-level mutants were bulleted back by his full counterattack. The only thing that could affect him was Slit Ghost's immobilization skill. In its physical form, the Slit Ghost could hard control Zhang Yi and Flower for 8 whole seconds. Undoubtedly, this was an utterly monstrous ability. In a one-on-one fight, it could even stand a chance against stronger foes. Unfortunately for it, this time, it faced Zhang Yi. Even if Zhang Yi stood still and let it attack, it couldn't get close. As the battle raged on, the Divine Nest Sun God grew increasingly alarmed, his impatience giving way to a grim expression. Rumble! High above, thunder roared ever louder. In this endless rain-soaked night, lightning danced like silver serpents within the dark clouds, as if rousing the world from slumber. Yasukani no Magatama. The Divine Nest Sun God swung his scepter, sending black Magatama spinning down one after another. Like colossal flying stars, they instantly grew immense, crushing toward Zhang Yi in a manner he could not evade. Zhang Yi's choice, however, was to meet fire with fire. Fingers like blades, compressing power of the void into a bullet-sized sphere. Unstable void power erupted from his fingertips, forming the most powerful long-range attack Zhang Yi could currently unleash. Star-piercing cannon. Flower opened his mouth, joining Zhang Yi's combined assault. A crimson high-energy particle cannon coalesced within his mouth before blasting toward the heavens. The black beam and red streak merged into one, streaking skyward to collide violently with the flying star. It looked as if a slender wooden rod had been thrust to prop up the heavens. The energy dissipated without a sound. The entire city of Edo lay nearly destroyed by the battle between the two. Below, the city showed no trace of human existence, only vast stretches of desolate, barren land. The power of the star-piercing cannon was insufficient to fully counter the Yasukani no Magatama's might, yet the scattered remnants were perfectly absorbed by everything under heaven. Then, Zhang Yi evenly dispersed this energy, directing it straight at the 3 great ghost kings. Though merely scattered power, the combined full force of 2 black chariot-level beings meant even their residual energy was enough to make the 3 great ghost kings' expressions darken. The great Tengu spread its massive wings to shield itself, yet was still violently hurled backward. The Inugami's claws splayed open, its sharp talons desperately trying to grip the air, but it was still knocked backward along with the Slit Ghost clinging to its body. They tumbled hundreds of times through the air before finally coming to a halt. Zhang Yi drew a deep breath and murmured, "Truly formidable opponents." Unbeknownst to them, the Divine Nest Sun felt even more troubled. Am I now incapable of defeating even a mere 6th generation? Staring at his own hands, his expression twisted into a grimace. A terrifying force began surging within him, as if something even more dreadful was about to emerge. Boom! A thunderclap ripped through the heavens, like a silver blade cleaving the sky in two. Divine Nest Sun God's pupils contracted sharply as he lifted his head to stare at the sky. Is this a warning? But clearly, the time is almost up. This peculiar expression and the almost neurotic muttering caught Zhang Yi's attention, causing him to frown. What is that guy doing? Who is he talking to? The time is almost up? Zhang Yi stroked his chin. Could it be, as I suspected, that he cannot remain in this world for too long? Yes, that must be it. Otherwise, he wouldn't be the only one to appear. The Divine Nest Sun God lowered his head, gazing intently at Zhang Yi. A hint of jealousy flickered in his eyes. This left Zhang Yi utterly baffled. The Divine Nest Sun God clenched his fists. But today, I must kill you. He drew a deep breath, suddenly turning to face the Slit Ghost, the Great Tengu, and Inugami. His eyes held a tender, nostalgic gaze. Old friends, farewell. Zhang Yi fixed his gaze on the movements of the Divine Nest Sun God. The other party's behavior was somewhat peculiar, and Zhang Yi dared not act rashly. After all, given the current situation, defeating the Divine Nest Sun God with an ability index of 25,000 points would not be straightforward. Divine Nest Sun God murmured softly, bidding farewell to the 3 great ghost kings. Then he suddenly opened his mouth and sucked in a sharp breath. Whoosh! With his action, a terrifying storm erupted, violent winds howling across the sky. The three great ghost kings made no movement, yet they were swept along by this tempest, flying toward divine Nest Sun God. What unfolded next caused Zhang Yi's expression to grow grave. For the three great ghost kings, including the colossal body of the Inugami, were all swallowed whole by divine Nest Sun God. Absorbing the energy of the three great ghost kings to strengthen himself? This is getting tricky. This guy is far more formidable than before. As the absorption of the three great ghost kings concluded, the power of the divine Nest Sun God, whose ability index had previously been only 25,000 points, skyrocketed once more. Its frail form suddenly swelled. What had been the size of an ordinary human now stretched out to over 10 meters. Rip! The black robes were torn apart, revealing its true form. A gray body covered in fine fur, thick limbs, a slender gray tail, and a long, narrow skull. The true form of the divine Nest Sun God was that of a rodent. 30 seconds. He held up 3 fingers toward Zhang Yi. I only need 30 seconds to kill you. Zhang Yi sensed the immense danger closing in, yet he did not panic. If you want to kill me, then come and try. The divine Nest Sun God raised his scepter, and brought it down with a fierce strike. A terrifying surge of energy shot toward Zhang Yi's dimensional gate like a piercing arrow. Zhang Yi's pupils contracted violently. Through everything follows the trail, he actually saw the dimensional gate shatter. Without hesitation, he swung the sword in the tree in his hand. Countless tree branches surged skyward. Boom! Infused with Zhang Yi's immense supernatural energy, the sword and the tree's growth rate and scale became terrifying. In an instant, thousands of vines, each 5 to 6 meters thick, twisted and coiled together, weaving into an incredibly complex shield that barricaded Zhang Yi. The black arrows plunged downward, yet the resilient tree shield couldn't hold them back for even a second. The arrows pierced through it like cutting through bamboo. The terrifying force surged straight toward the dimensional gate, instantly piercing through over a dozen of them. Zhang Yi finally grasped the terrifying nature of another civilization through the divine Nest Sun God. Its current power was at least approaching that of the former Nash Kingdom prince. This is truly becoming a difficult situation, Zhang Yi murmured. The divine Nest Sun God stood suspended mid-air, godlike, as another black arrow coalesced in its palm. If not for that inexplicable power, you'd be dead already. Don't get too cocky, little brat. He fixed his gaze on Zhang Yi, this strike poised to shatter his defenses completely. But at that very moment, a beam of light streaked across the distant horizon, piercing the night in an instant and striking the head of the divine Nest Sun God with brutal force. His spellcasting was violently interrupted, and his body was even blasted hundreds of meters sideways. Divine Nest Sun God froze. Not even Zhang Yi had anticipated reinforcements arriving now. Both turned to look into the distance, where a man clad in black armor stood atop a towering iron structure. He held a massive black sniper rifle, its sights locked on their position. The piercer, Yashin Canelo. Zhang Yi's eyebrows arched slightly. He hadn't expected Canelo to intervene at this moment. It was already a blessing that Canelo hadn't attacked him. Canelo's voice came through the communication channel. Colombia cannot tolerate such a terrifying entity existing in Neon. Zhang Yi instantly grasped his reasoning. The Neon Islands were territory controlled by the Colombia Navy. The power now displayed by the divine Nest Sun God posed a severe threat to their rule. Naturally, Canelo would not accept this. Better to cooperate with Zhang Yi and find a way to eliminate this threat. That would be beneficial for both sides. In this world, there are no eternal enemies or friends, only eternal interests. Behind the black sniper rifle, Canelo frowned. Though his shot had wounded divine Nest Sun God, his mind remained uneasy. His ability, Everything Penetrates, could bypass most defenses, dealing true damage. That was precisely why he could wound the divine Nest Sun God, whose ability index dwarfed his own by tens of thousands of points. The prerequisite, however, was that Zhang Yi drew the divine Nest Sun God's primary attention. Yet such opportunities for ambush wouldn't last forever. Chaos, all I can offer is long-range deterrence. If you can't hold out, I'll retreat immediately, Canelo stated with extreme caution. Zhang Yi smiled. Canelo's willingness to assist had already added a significant weight to the scales of victory. Though it couldn't tip the battle's outcome, it at least bolstered Zhang Yi's chances of success. Yet, the sight of Canelo wielding that sniper rifle, no matter how one looked at it, bore an uncanny resemblance to Zhang Yi, the assassin from the Star Island era. Worm. The divine nest sun god glared furiously at Canelo. But in the next instant, Zhang Yi's fingertips coalesced into an eternal, indestructible dark star. Star-piercing cannon. Here it comes! Whoosh! In an instant, the divine nest sun god launched another assault. A black magatama on his scepter swelled rapidly, forming a colossal flying star behind him. The star spun at breakneck speed, churning the clouds in the sky into a raging torrent. Celestial Dark Star. The massive black magatama transformed into a crimson monstrous eye in the sky. Surging power poured down, becoming a torrential rain that completely enveloped the space where Zhang Yi stood. This strike completely sealed Zhang Yi's ability to activate Space Shuffle. For the moment he emerged from the dimensional gate, he would be attacked. Then, the colossal flying star descended directly toward Zhang Yi. At this rate of attack, it would take no more than a dozen strikes to shatter Zhang Yi's dimensional gate completely. By then, he would have no means left to counter the attacks of the divine nest sun god. At the distant edge of the city, Canelo seized his chance and pulled the trigger. The black sniper rifle erupted in a deafening crack as a jet-black beam pierced the sky, instantly reaching the temple of the divine nest sun god. The divine nest sun god had anticipated this strike, immediately raising his right-hand scepter to block it. Bang! The single shot shattered one of the magical rings adorning the scepter. The immense force sent the divine nest sun god's body staggering. Gazing at the shattered ring on his scepter, he finally realized, Canelo's attack specifically countered defensive barriers. Below, Zhang Yi's dimensional gate shattered once more, cracking into over a dozen new fissures. Even with Canelo's support, his destructive power alone can shatter the dimensional gate's threshold. Interesting. This is truly fascinating. Zhang Yi gritted his teeth. Perhaps the imminent danger brought a strange calm to his mind. Continue.